Okay, so here is a video to show how to disable selections from appearing in a relational field. In this particular case, we're looking at some relational fields in one of our solutions here, the incident management app, part of the Serena Service Manager suite. And the fields that the customer was inquiring about were these few right here. So first we need to find out what table each one of these relational fields is pointing to. And we do that by just simply looking at the property editor for these fields and taking a look at the options tab to see what application it's pointing to and the table within that application that it's referencing. All three of these happen to reference the CMS application, which is another application in the SSM suite, and each one is referencing a table that is appropriately named after the field, or vice versa. So here we need to go ahead, and I already have the referenced application expanded so we can take a look at these tables. And these are the three that are referenced. Now, depending upon the table that's being referenced, if it's a primary table, each primary table should already have an active-inactive system field added to it. Aux tables don't by default. And in order to disable a selection in a table so it doesn't appear in a relational field, you need to actually open up that particular record and switch the active-inactive system field to inactive. And in this case, since we're referencing aux tables that doesn't have this field already, we need to go ahead and open up this application so we can add this system field to that table. This should be the app, I believe, CMS. Okay, and here are the three tables. So the system active inactive field is going to be on the palette on the right side. We're just going to go ahead and drag it into each one of these tables. Now before we go ahead and deploy this, we need to confirm that none of these auxiliary tables are using custom forms where the active and inactive field may not already be on the edit or view form, because we would not be able to go ahead and access that field when we go to edit the records. This table is fine, it's using quick forms, so the active and inactive field should be on here. That one is also okay. This one is actually using custom forms here, so if we want to have the active and inactive field visible on the view and edit forms, we'll need to go ahead and add it, or you can change them over to quick forms. But if you're dealing with a solution like this, you probably want to keep most of the original configuration. So here we'll just go ahead and drag the active and inactive field onto the form. Guess the view 1, 2, even though it's really the edit form that we'll need to make sure it's on so we can change it. Okay, now we can go ahead and deploy it. Now that the changes have been deployed, we can go ahead and pull up these tables in the auxiliary data view of the application administrator and just find the table from the drop-down. The first one's here. And as you can see, we now see the active and inactive column added to the view form. And just go ahead and open up the details of any record you want to go ahead and disable from showing up in any relational field pointing to it. So let's say we wanted to go ahead and take out facility. We'll open up the details to this. And we'll go ahead and hit the update. And this is, again, a custom form, so you'll get these graphical elements. And we can go ahead and switch this to inactive and hit OK. So same thing applies to any of the other tables. My customer was looking at a few, but don't need to repeat that. Okay. Now we're going to go ahead and try to find this application here. Oh, one other thing I needed to mention is there is a setting for relational fields to show whether a inactive item will appear or not. By default, the particular fields we're looking at in this case don't have it checked already, but just to make sure, go ahead and pull up whatever relational field you're dealing with in the property editor in Composer, and go to the options and look for this checkbox here, inactive items appear in selection list. As long as this isn't checked, what we're doing will work. When we deactivate a item, it will no longer appear in the selection list. Now that we've completed that change, we're just going to go ahead and take a look at runtime here to make sure that value is now gone from that field. So I'm in the Incident Management app here, and it's on the update transition right here. And we can see that facilities is no longer in the list. So that's how you do it. And one thing I should mention after switching a value to an active is, especially for an aux table, is that if you come back here, you'll notice that it's no longer in the list. And you might wonder, okay, what if I want to go ahead and change it back to an active, or change it back to active in the future? And the way you do that is through a profile setting. This is actually a profile specific setting. So if you go back to the workspace here and load your profile, you can go ahead and go to the display tab, and this right here is what controls it. Not only does it control it for the view in the aux table, manage auxiliary data view, but it also controls it for the advanced lookup feature. So if you want to have inactive items appear here, you can switch it to all to view both and save it. And then go ahead and come back here and reload it, or hit the search to reload, and then you see it's right there. So you can go ahead and edit this in the future if you wish. So that's how you go ahead and remove values from a relational field by switching values in the reference table to inactive. Just to clarify a couple things here, if you wanted to go ahead and do the same thing for records in a primary table, you would just simply find those records in the normal user interface and perform an update on them to change the active and inactive field. Additionally, you can simply delete records in any table and they will stop showing up in the list. However, that has implications for existing records. So if existing old records are using that value and you delete that value, those fields will change to none. So if you want to maintain those records that a relational field is using for integrity purposes on old items, the method that we went through is the best one to use, is to simply switch it to inactive. So it still shows up when you pull up those old items that use it, but it won't show up in the list for new items going forward. So just keep those in mind, but that's how you go ahead and work with records in relational fields.